This is what I've learned about facing a trial. I went through a major trial in my family from November 2012 to November 2014. And I learned a lot of valuable lessons through that time. Today, I'm going to talk about those things in light of the coronavirus. So right now, as I'm filming this video, we're in a major worldwide crisis with this coronavirus thing. It's shut down pretty much everything. A lot of quarantines going on, a lot of questions. People are fearful of their jobs, their health, their families, their futures. That is a major trial. So I'm going to share what I learned from my personal trial back in 2012 to 2014 in light of this coronavirus. So let's get started. Okay, what exactly did I learn? First off, this is what happened. I was very successful in a great job opportunity. I was general manager of a company that was $80+ million a year, about 150 employees, and I was the guy, other than the owner, who was pretty much absent. I was his man to run the company. Had a lot of cool opportunities, a lot of cool stuff happening. My 3 girls were all in college at the same time. Yeah, not fun. You think about college tuition and all the expenses therein. Well, I had 3 kids in college at the same time. Had a big, ridiculous house that I had built at the time, which I'm embarrassed of now. It was just, I was caught up in the rat race. I was caught up in the money that I was making, and I'm embarrassed to say who I actually was. Well, I was a good guy, but I was not responsible with money at all. I was very much just going through it and buying things that were not necessary. I was not a good steward with my money through that time. But that was where I was in 2012. And that was, an 8-year job, 7-8-year job that I had. So I was on top of the world, if you will, and through some people's eyes. But the owner decided he wanted to sell the company. And in order to do so, he needed to bring a shark into the company to dress it up, to button it up, because he was a business savvy man who had a lot of experience with buttoning up companies, making them strong and solid and firm and like a well-oiled machine, so he could get the most money when he sold the company. So he told me, hey, I'm stepping out. I'm not sure what's going to happen with your job. I'll protect you for 1 year, but this guy's going to come in. He's going to take over the company, and he's going to get it ready to sell. So good luck. That was not exactly what I wanted to hear when I had a big house, a big mortgage. I had 3 girls in college. Not exactly what you wanted to hear. So when this guy comes in November 2012, one of the first things he does is meet with me, and one of the first things he does is kick me out of my office, and he takes my office and he moves me down to a little bitty room down the hall a little bit, just to humiliate me, I guess, a little bit. But he needed me. So it was be tough to me, but be just enough nice to me to keep me there, because he needed to learn what I knew about the company. There was a lot that he needed to know. Well, me being naive, I'm thinking, yeah, I can handle this. I'll be nice. I'll do this. I'll teach him anything he wants to know and hope for the best. And I hope that I'll be with the new company. When the new company buys it, maybe I'll secure my position and let them know how needed I am and how wonderful I am, blah, blah, blah. Well, he comes in and he cuts my salary in half that day and said, hey, you're going to have a different role. I do need you to help me through this process, but I'm going to have to cut your salary in half. Not easy. That set me in a financial spiral. During that time, it was extremely hard on my family. I was worried about my girls in college at that time. I was worried about our mortgage, my family, my marriage. Everything was on the line at that point. But still, I knew who I was as a person, and I knew I needed to stay there. I needed to prove myself. I was going to tough through the storm and prove myself worthy of staying on and getting my salary and winning my salary back, because I was just that good, at what I was going to do and help them out with. So I did that. At the same time, I'm spiraling financially. We have to do a lot of moves, personally, with the girls in college and with our mortgage and just a lot of stuff that we had to really start slimming down to tighten up through that time. Right about that time, my mother-in-law gives us a call that she's very sick. She had fallen, broke her hip, and she went into the hospital to get her hip checked out. And my wife and daughters went up there to visit her, and while they're there, they find out that she's got stage 4 cancer right in the midst of all of this. So I'm going through one of the toughest financial things I've ever gone through, and now my mother-in-law, my wife's mom, is dying, and she's single. She's not married, so she's single in her house by herself. So my wife sees that she's only got months to live, so my wife moves to North Carolina, moves from Georgia to North Carolina to nurse her mom through those final months. So now I've got 3 girls in college. I've got a wife that's in North Carolina with her dying mom, and it's just me and my dog at the house every day. And it's hard. It's very hard. That starts spiraling down to the point to where I'm thinking that I've proved myself. I'm thinking that, man, I've done a lot of stuff he doesn't even know about. I'm bringing millions of dollars into the company that he doesn't know where it's coming from. And I'm going to have a meeting and I'm going to tell him all about it. I'm going to let him know where this money's coming from and what I've done so I can get my salary coming back. I push and push and push and push over 3 or 4 weeks to get this meeting. He's stalling for some reason. He just waits and waits and waits. Finally, I get the meeting and I show him the spreadsheet. I show him the data. I show him the reports of where this extra money's coming from. So I've got my reports. I've got my data. I spell it all out. And I'm thinking the next thing out of his mouth is going to be, man, you've really worked hard. I really appreciate that. I didn't know. I knew the numbers were going up, but I didn't know exactly where it was coming from. Thank you. You've certainly proven yourself worthy. I'm going to give you a raise. That's what I'm thinking is going to come out of his mouth, but it's not. He's pacing back and forth. He's drinking his little water bottle, and he says, you know what, L.A., I think this is where we part ways. And just those words echoed in my head. We're going to part ways? What? What does that even mean? I said, you see the numbers, you see what I've done, you see the millions of dollars coming into the company. He said, yeah, I know all that and I appreciate that, but we just need I think this is where we part ways. And I said, I really don't understand what you're saying. Are you saying, I'm asking for a raise. If you don't want to give me a raise, I'll survive. He said, no, it's not about a raise. It's not about even keeping you here. This is where we part ways. And I said, so are you letting me go? And he said, yeah, I think we've learned all that we need to know. We're going to part ways. Woo, that was tough. I walked down the hall. I grabbed my stuff out of my office, packed up, had security follow me as I'm going through that, and I leave. I don't even want to call my wife. I don't even want to tell her what's happened because I'm so devastated through all of this. It's tough. But through that time, I still got up early. I still dressed for work. I sat in my home office. I started looking for other jobs. I started trying to figure out what to do. That was reality. That was the gut punch. That was the depth of one of the toughest trials I've ever been through in my life. We've got a for sale sign in our yard because we got to sell the house. We're trying to figure out how to keep the girls in college through that time. Tough. So I know, number one, when I'm in a trial, is to pray. So I would pray hard. I'd get up every morning and pray hard. I'd pray through the day and I'd pray into the evening. I'd wake up praying and I'd go to bed praying, because I know that my God has my best interest at heart. And we're praying for a buyer. We're praying that the mortgage company be nice to us and see us through this whole process and help us through that trial that was so hard on my family. But nothing happens. We get people come and look at the house. We get people, some traffic, but nothing. Nobody's buying a house of that size. And it wasn't the greatest economy then, 2012, 2013. So nobody's wanting to buy a house like the one I had. We just keep sinking and sinking. We're making deal after deal with the mortgage company, trying to figure out. And I'm praying my heart out. I'm praying and praying. To one point, I was out walking. I would take prayer walks with my dog. During the day, I would say, "Hey, buddy, you ready to go pray?" And we just take a break, because I've been job searching all morning. I've been brainstorming, coming up with things, trying to keep my head above water, trying to keep positive. We'd go on our prayer walks, and this particular prayer walk, my knees just gave out, and I just laid there on my driveway. My dog's wondering what the heck's going on. I just curled up in a fetal position and cried my eyes out, begging God, "Where are you? I know you're there. I know you're going to help us. I know I don't want to go through a foreclosure. I don't even know what that looks like. I don't want to do that. I don't want to ruin my credit. I don't want to go through this crap. Please be there. Help us. Give us an answer. Show up. Show up." And nothing. Day after day after month. Time just seems to go on. My mother-in-law dies. She passes away. My wife moves back home. It's just me and her. And we're going through this, just the trial. And my wife is supportive as she possibly can be through this whole process. I'm praying and praying. And during that time, I heard a couple of sermons and I had a couple of life lessons. One is, I just realized that God is infinitely complex, but He's also a lover of the simplicity. What I mean by that is there's over 600 Jewish laws in the Old Testament. Over 600 things that God spelled out for the Jewish people in their early covenant, the Old Testament, for them to follow in order to be holy enough to come into His presence and have a relationship with God. Over 600 things they needed to do. But He also, when Jesus was here, when God was here in the flesh and Jesus walked among us, He narrowed it down to two things. The two most important laws. Love your God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul. And love your neighbor as you love yourself. Those two things. So over 600 got narrowed down to two. So God is a lover of simplicity. So I'm listening to that sermon. I'm listening to these lessons. And then I think, wow, that's very similar to Vince Lombardi, a very famous football coach, where he narrowed it down to the basics and showed up one day with his team. He's got a football in his hand. And he's like, "Guys, let's start over. This is a football." He started with just the basics. This is a football. So he's narrowing it down to the simplicity. And he wanted them to just forget all the complexities, all the plays, all the positions, all the strategies, the different teams that you play and the different strategies that you come up with for those teams. Forget all that. This is a football. So I start coupling those things together. The simplicity of God's laws, the two most important laws. This is a football. And I think about my college days at Georgia Southern when Irk Russell was the coach. They were just starting a football team when I got there in 1983. The first football practice they show up and they don't even have a football. They've got everything but a football. Or footballs. They didn't have anything to practice with. So they have to send somebody to Walmart to buy a football so they can practice. But then Eric Russell just laughs about it, and he said, you know what? That's a reminder to get back to the basics. We're just going to block and tackle. We're going to learn how to block and tackle. If we can learn how to execute excellently, blocking and tackling, we're going to be a great team. So he narrowed it down to two things. So I'm thinking, okay, how do I apply that to my prayer life? I'm praying. What am I missing, God? What is my block and tackle? What do I need to do during a trial? What do these people need to do during the coronavirus to help them through this trial? What is the simplicity? What is the brass knuckles version of simplicity for what these people need to do? What did I need to do during that trial? And he puts the word trust in my mind. So I've got praying and trusting. And he just said, it was like a voice said, if you don't trust in your prayers, it's really just words. You're just really talking. You're babbling. If you trust in me, trust that you are in my presence. Trust that you can come to my presence through my Son, the Messiah. It's his work on the cross that allows you into my presence. Trust that. Trust my promises. Trust that I've got your best interest at heart, that I work all things for good for those who serve me. Trust that. So I needed to do that. I needed to couple trust with prayer. So I start praying and trusting God, you're right. I need to consider it pure joy when I'm going through a trial because I get to see you work. Because I get a front row seat to see you work when I'm in the midst of a trial. So that's what I started doing, praying and trusting. And again, weeks, months go by. Remember, this is a 2-year period. It's from November 2012 to November 2014 when this whole thing played out. Praying and trusting. And I'm like, God, months later, there's still something missing. I mean, I'm begging the mortgage company. I'm getting extension after extension after extension to make this thing work. For God to show up, to give me a job, to give me an opportunity, to figure out what I'm going to do. What is my next move? Open the door. I'm trusting. But there was something missing. It was a third one. Pray, trust. It was a third one. And it came to me, I need to obey. How's my walk? What am I doing? What am I doing in my walk to serve God, to honor God, to love God, to share God with other people? What am I doing in my walk? Am I angry? Am I gossiping? Am I anxious? Am I worrying? Am I lusting? Am I doing any of these things that I should not do? Am I honoring my time for God? Am I serving God? Am I obeying what he wants from me? Am I being the husband that I need to be? Am I being the dad that I need to be during this time? Yeah, it's a trial, and yeah, it sucks, and I can get into a pity party, and I can crawl up in a fetal position and lay in a snot bubble in my driveway crying through this. But through that, I need to obey. So I added that. Pray, trust, obey. When I put those three things together, things started happening. I got a call for a buyer for my house, and that buyer worked for a company that gave me a job. So a buyer for my house comes in, and he gives me a job at the same stroke. And I've got this now. I'm praying, trusting, obeying. Things open up, and I get this job, and I'm relieved. And he's able to get into my house. And God showed up. Inserted thought here. Sometimes our plans don't line up with God's plans. I'm thinking God's done. I'm like, God, you showed up. You gave me a job. You sold my house. This is it. I prayed, I trusted, I obeyed. You showed up. Done. Let's go celebrate. That job lasted for about 6 or 8 months. Through that process, the guy backed out of buying my house. Then he let me go because his company was suffering. So 8 months after that huge celebration and relief, I'm out of a job and I haven't sold my house. I have to put a sign back in my yard to sell my house, because he had moved in and he was leasing it for that process. We were living in an apartment, figuring things out until it finally sold. He lived in my house for 6 to 8 months before I realized it wasn't going to happen, and I lost that job. So, hey, pray, trust, obey. God's going to show up. But when he does, be careful with your celebration, because he might just pivot. And he might dangle something to see, where are you really serving? Are you celebrating this one little moment that I showed up and that's the end of it? You go on as life as normal. Maybe you put me back on a shelf again, put me in the closet again, and you don't really think about me because you don't really need me. Sometimes God does that. Sometimes God will give you a temporary answer. Maybe he'll crack a door open and he'll make you think that that's it, because he's testing you. He wants to see what your reaction is going to be during that time. So if he pulls that away, are you going to be right back in a ball of snot bubbles on your driveway? Or are you going to be on your knees trusting him, praying, trusting, obeying? So when that happened, that's exactly what I did. I prayed, trusted, and obeyed. I didn't argue. I didn't fuss. I didn't get mad at God when he yanked the rug out like that. I didn't. I prayed. I went right back to work again, praying, trusting, obeying. Within 1 week of putting that sign in the yard, after all of that, 2 years plus 6 or 8 months, all of that, another buyer showed up and gave me exactly what I was asking. Another job opportunity opened up, the job that I have right now. And it's fantastically more than what I could ever ask or imagine. So I'm telling you this story to let you know, through this trial, through this coronavirus, whatever you're doing right now, if this is years later that you're watching this and the coronavirus is come and gone, but you've got trials. We all have trials. We all have crap that we go through. I'm giving you the formula right now. Whatever trial you're in, do those 3 things. Pray, trust, and obey. Pray because God asks us to. He wants to be involved in your life. Obey? No. Trust, the second one. He wants you to acknowledge that he is King of Kings. He holds the keys. Trust that he wants you in his presence. Trust that he wants to help you. Trust that he has your best interest at heart. And thirdly, obey. Make sure you're walking the walk. Make sure you're buttoned up. Make sure you're doing what you should do in your walk. You're not praying and asking this and then living a completely different lifestyle. Those 3 things are magic together. And after I did that, when you're off of work that long, that was my trial. I was out of a job. I thought of this very, very clever hook that I'm going to land right now. Pray, trust, obey. What are those letters? PTO. What does PTO also stand for? Paid time off. So if you've ever had a job before and you asked for PTO, that's vacation. That's when you get to take time off of work and you get paid. So look at the analogy in this PTO. You're getting paid for your time off. So the trial that you're going through, the season of crap that you're going through, the season of a puddle of snot bubbles that you're going through, when it's just beyond miserable, pray, trust, obey. Paid time off. Get paid during that time off through the Word of God, through the promises of God, what he can deliver for you. Consider it pure joy when you face trials of any kind. That's crazy, that verse. When that's delivered, consider it pure joy when you go through a trial of any kind. What? Well, when you think about paid time off, you're praying, trusting, and obeying, and you're looking for God, and you get a front row seat to watch God work. That's pretty cool. So that's the lesson that I learned when I went through a major trial. That's the application that I'm doing right now through this coronavirus. I'm praying, I'm trusting, and I'm obeying because I know God's got bigger and better on the back end. I know he's got our best interest at heart. I know we can survive anything that he puts on our plate. I know he loves us, and I know his promises are real, and I know they're real for me and they're real for you too. That's it. That's the lesson that I wanted to share with you today. Pray, trust, obey, PTO, paid time off. Consider it pure joy when you go through trials of any kind. So whatever trial you're facing, hit those big three. Get on your knees and trust God and pray to God and obey His word. Do those three things, and I'm telling you, He's going to show up. Probably not on your calendar, not on your time, not with your plan. He's going to show up on His calendar, His time, with His plan. And sometimes His plan is beyond the plan. So be ready for the pivot. Be ready for things that might change and you think it's God, but it's really not. Be okay with that, because His ways are way beyond our understanding. His ways are much higher than ours. Have a great day. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it if you subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.